Hello and welcome. It's All for United. We are back once again, and goodness me, what a show we have got planned for you this evening. It's no different from any of the others, to be fair. Only we're talking about Crystal Palace, so massively different, I suppose. But it used to be full of the usual fun, laughter, frolic, and just biased opinions, I suppose. You would probably get from a fair few of us. But the one thing we will do is we'll talk about it properly and we won't get too emotional. That's the plan anyway. Look who we've got with us. We have got a wonderful little panel. Just below me, Mr. John Neville, season ticket holder. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having us on here again.
Absolutely not a problem at all. And in the bottom right-hand corner, after a couple of Mohamed Salah-like weeks, he's back in the squad, and here he is, Mr. Willie. How the devil are you?
Well, after last week's faux pas, where I forgot, where I forgot what I was doing, yes, I'm back. But I did want to ask John whether or not he'd been fucked over by the club on his season ticket like they have me.
Not at the moment, to my knowledge.
Absolute fuckers, aren't they? For those who don't know, they've changed their season ticket rules quite extensively for this year. And I tip over to the 30th year of having my season ticket. Not that I go anymore because my lad goes. And yet I'm still told that I've got to attend 70, or we've got to swipe or sell the ticket back if we can't make 17 out of the 19 home games. And also that potentially they're going to stop the ticket forward system or ticketing forward system, whereas people, for example, could just download a season ticket to another device. That can't be done anymore. And they go away. Well, too much of that. And I also understand, and I don't know whether you've heard this, that they're now going to change when you get your ticket for certain games, they're going to check the barcode or the QR code. So I don't know.
I believe
I'm astounded by it.
There's quite a few new things coming in next season, like you say, using the app for your ticket rather than downloading it to your
you got to
phone
use the
wallet
app
and things like that. And it's going to be very, very stringent.
But here's the thing. They don't want season ticket holders anymore, unfortunately, because John and myself, if we can't make the game or Jake can't make the game, we sell the ticket back to the club, and then the club are not 100%. They're not selling it at face value for what me and John get back. They're selling it for double the money. So they don't want me and John anymore. We are surplus to requirements, because if you were to sell your ticket back every game, they could probably make $2,000 profit off of you if you do simple mathematics based on maybe a 23 or 26 or 30 quid ticket. So we are no longer required, John, I don't think, pal. That's the way I'm reading this certain shift in the way that season tickets are being monitored.
Yeah, it's definitely seems like that's the way things are heading.
Yeah.
Rather sad starts to proceedings there.
Well, I thought it needed to be brought up, Baz, to be honest, because it's not good. Andrew's saying it's 15, but it was 17. It was 17 because on my initial email it was 17. So maybe they've changed it due to issues, but still not good.
Well, there we go. That is season ticket update. Maybe we'll make that a regular sort of weekly thing as to whether or not the season ticket holders are feeling loved. We'll see how that goes. Speaking of feeling loved, it's my right-hand man on the left-hand side who's not been well, and he looks shorter than normal. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because my head's higher, but he's looking tiny, a bit Ronnie Corbett-esque. How you doing,
my chair's lower. I'm feeling a little bit better. Not fantastic still, but much better than I was last week. Anyway, about 3 or 4 days bed rest seemed to do the trick. luckily, well, I say luckily, but I actually missed the Burnley game, which I think is probably the first game I've missed this season in terms of watching. And it sounds as like it was a good one to miss. So all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Well, there we go. And we have got another person. I'm not a huge fan of doing five-a-sides here, but as he'd been kind enough to reply at some point, we have drafted him in. We're letting him off because obviously we know we get some Americans in here. Clearly, we know they butcher the language at times. They really do. Drive through, for example, doesn't end in a U, does it? Let's be clear on that. But, they do that. Clearly, the word may is something that has a different meaning over there as well. And here he is. It's Mr. John Commode. He is with us. How are you, sir?
Hello, yes, good to see you all. I'm the only Mancunian here, though, aren't I?
You are, but you're a long way away. I'm
yes,
close.
I am, yes. So never too far away from home.
Except today.
Always
yes,
here,
indeed.
Always just here.
No, good to be on. I hope everybody's having a good week. And relax this weekend before a debacle on Monday, probably.
Well, there we go.
Well, I can relate to that. Not that I was ever got pushed through the turnstiles at Main Road, but I do remember scalping tickets rather easily in the late 80s, for sure. So, yes. But you used to be able to get away with it then. It used to be great.
You certainly wouldn't do nowadays, that's for sure.
Mm.
And he's saying as much as pain in the bum, I think this is new rules for staff in an attempt to always keep the stadium full. Though not having season tickets does seem like a terrible idea for atmosphere. I agree fully with that. And yes, exactly. English does butcher itself. It's the worst language in the world, without doubt. And hello to you.
Marco.
Right, let's get ourselves kicked off. We couldn't get a Crystal Palace fan. We did try and get in touch with a couple of them, but they seem to be running scared this time. So we'll see if we can get them next season. Bit bizarre for them, though, to be running scared, Stu, due to the fact that for the first time in their history, they could do the league double over us were they to win, which would then give us our 13th defeat of the season, which we are worst Premier League record for losses ever. So not hard really to do when you consider how good it's been with Sir Alex Ferguson. But general gist of the Palace game, how are you feeling ahead of the game on Monday?
Yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to it because Palace are playing some not scintillating football, but they have certainly turned a huge corner under their new gaffer, Johnny K. What is it? Gads?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, him. Anyway, and he's doing it with players you wouldn't expect him to do with, Nathaniel Klein and the effervescent Will Hughes seems to be still knocking around, and players of that ilk, Jordan Ayew or one of the Ayew brothers is still knocking about. And so glad to know that's it. Cheers, Mark, as always. So I think it'll be quite a decent game of football. Palace will definitely come to try and beat us for sure. Yeah, I mean, they could well do the double over us. It wouldn't beyond us to kind of implode during the match, but I do think we'll be a little bit too strong for them. I think in the background the potential is that Den Haag's been given the green light somewhere along the line, and I think that maybe you may see some changes within the playing squad and the starting 11, but I do believe we could go there and turn over Palace 2-0. That would be my prediction. Where we are with injuries at the moment, I mean, there's a doubt over Bruno, isn't there? And I would potentially not play him and maybe give Mason Mount a run out if he's fit. And nobody knows. McTominay's got that slight strain again. You wouldn't play him. Really, whatever happens against Palace, I don't think it'll massively change where we finish. in the league table, or what it does for our European chances. I know Tottenham are in free fall at the moment, but that's, we've given ourselves way too much to do to even look at Tottenham. And our only issues, I suppose, are Newcastle at the moment. With, I think they won today, didn't they? 4-1 or something like that. Turned over Burnley where we couldn't. So I quite fancy us anyway, and I think we can get a Palace, and I think we can beat them. But he's got a very delicate balancing act right now between now and the cup final as to what he does and who he doesn't. I read somewhere, or I heard that Martinez is back on the training ground again. Just leave him there. Just don't bother with him. Leave him there till the start of next season. Let him recuperate. Let these players who are constantly injured recuperate. And then make your choices in the summer. So, yes, I think we will go and we will beat Mr. Glasner on his own backyard.
Would be an interesting one, that's for sure. John, no, it's that one again, isn't it? Johnny K, we'll go to you on this one. NT's already asked the question, as he hasn't checked the injury list. Do we have another centre-back returning, or is it going to be Casemiro again? Now, we know that Johnny Evans is back in training.
He is.
That is a factual statement. But we do not know if Johnny Evans will start. And obviously, Stu just mentioned about potentially giving people a rest. How are you looking at this game coming up on Monday? And would you start Casemiro in the centre-back again? Or if Evans is fit and ready, would you bring him back in?
Well, if you're looking at this season, if a player's half fit, and he tends to pick the defence usually Ten Hag. So, I mean, for me, it's a big risk because it's a case of priorities. Because you want to, I mean, ultimately, it is the cup final that our season maybe depends on, you'd say. So, I think it's about picking the best side you think will get you results. And, I think Johnny Evans, he came back against, I think it was Chelsea, then he went off, so you got to be careful with these things. Only Ten Hag and, the physical department in the club will know whether, and even Johnny Evans himself will know. I'm sure Johnny Evans will be eager to play if he's even 70% fit, but as for Casemiro, I think his form has been off this season, so I think he's one of those people where you ought to drop him, really, if considering there's mistake in him. But I don't think in defence he's done too badly, but obviously, he was at fault for. Well, I know Onana punched the Burnley player, but it was Casemiro's back header which caused us bother. But I actually think Casemiro didn't do too badly in defence in the 3 games he's played there. But like I say, it's hard to predict an 11 at the moment. Ideally, you'd want 2 centre-halves playing. I'm sure Maguire will play. But if Johnny Evans is fit enough, I would probably suggest he'll probably play, knowing Ten Hag's track record this season. But it depends how fit he is. But then again, I won't surprise me if Casemiro starts there again.
Well, it's Andrew Wall there, our very own Fabrizio Romano, telling us that Evans only returned to training on Thursday. There's a slight chance we'll be in the squad. We expect it to be Casemiro and Maguire in the centre-back pairing. So thank you very much for that, Fab. Simon saying, surely you have a youth player who can have a run out. Let's see what you've got. No offence, but the season's a write-off for United, possibly. And agree, John, says NT, apart from that header, which arguably could have happened, regardless of his starting position, he's been quite good. Mr. Neville, we'll throw it over to you. And I'm going to ask you the question, based also on the defence. Are you expecting to see Casemiro? Are you expecting to see Evans come in? And how big of a problem do you think it has been for us so far this season, having a defence that has just been so inconsistent in terms of starting appearances, in terms of not being able to keep a consistent back four. What do you think? And I ask that because Mark here says he largely attributes the result of the last 10 games to the inconsistency of the young attacking line. But I think if you're talking about defeats, it's not necessarily the attacking line not scoring that's the issue, because defensively, we're letting a similar amount of chances go at the other end. So, yes, there has to be that bit about the front line, but in terms of the defence, not been that great. So, yeah, what do you reckon about
that? Yeah, it's just been ridiculous, hasn't it? How many different centre back pairs we've had in centre backs playing at full back, and full backs playing on the wrong side to what they're supposed to be. Yeah, it's we've just never really had a partnership really all season, have we? It's just been chopping and changing right the way through. I wouldn't be surprised if Evans has been training this week, if he might just throw him in for this one. I mean, we've only got sort of 3 weeks till the cup final now, so I guess really he's got to start putting his eggs in that basket a bit more, and he might be thinking of resting 1 or 2 for that and making sure we've got everybody fit for then. So I could potentially see a few changes, and probably Evans maybe getting a start alongside Maguire.
I mean, just looking at it quickly, which I didn't realise because I've not looked at the league because it's too depressing. But looking at the current table, if it's right, if we were to win on Monday, we would move on to 57 points. We're 3 points behind Spurs, so that changes or would change my thought pattern. If I was Ten Hag about, can we possibly snatch 5th? Can we? I mean, Newcastle are still an issue. And if we did snatch 5th and gave a good account of ourselves in the cup final and maybe won it, it'd be a hell of a season, really, but potentially with the issues that we've sustained this year. Maybe.
Do you think that matters? The difference between 5th and 6th, really? The fact there's no Champions League spot for that.
Yeah, it does really. Well, I think it sounds daft because when you start the season, there's only one position, and that's number 1. That's it. Anything below that is meaningless. But I suppose when you consider where we are, I mean, if we were to finish 5th with potentially less than a +10 goal difference, because we're on a solitary goal at the moment in the plus. Wow, that would be. I mean, we're 59 goals behind Arsenal. I mean, it's just embarrassing, isn't it? But
it is interesting.
That's the way I'm looking at it. So
I can see a bit of a. I mean, I'd like to finish 5th. Obviously, if the option's there to finish 5th, you'd take it. You're not going to sit there and go, "Oh no, it's fine. We're quite happy in 6th." I do find it hilarious that Spurs are being Spursy again. That does always make me giggle, but it's much for muchness, really, isn't it? Mark's lovely to see some opinions thrown in here. It's nice that we're getting some sort of different things thrown in. But sure, defending is important, but when you score, it makes defending easier, makes the whole game easier, does it effectively. But equally, when you concede, if that's what happens first, then it makes the scoring harder because then the pressure's at the other end. So, I don't really want to just split it into defence, attack, midfield. At the end of the day, football's a team game, and everybody needs to do their bit. And the simple facts of the matter are that none of the areas are really doing the job that they should be doing to the level that they should be doing it. And what I will say, NT, is no. They did have a couple of games in hand. They've caught up on those now. It's pretty much level now. They
lost to Chelsea and Arsenal, wasn't it? And then they got Liverpool.
They got Liverpool, and then they got City, haven't they? Isn't it Liverpool?
No, I think they've got. I think it's Sheffield United and Burnley. I think,
and then City. But
I think they got Liverpool, then an easy-ish fix. I can't remember who.
It's Liverpool, Burnley, City, then Sheffield United.
But, yeah,
Yes,
it's Burnley,
so,
City,
yeah.
and then Sheffield. So they play City at home when we play Newcastle at home.
Yeah, which is what we potentially may need to do. It could be an interesting end to the season, really.
It could be. There's going to be bits and pieces within there, whatever happens. Let's see what a few things. Simon's saying, get out of the league, focus on the cup. It's simple. I mean, to be honest, I mostly agree with you on that one. Andrew saying we have to rely on Spurs losing the last 4 games because obviously we'll have the 1 game in hand once we play on Monday.
Haven't they lost 4 on the spin anyway? They've definitely lost 3.
They had that 2-week gap because they didn't play the weekend we played Coventry.
I just can't remember the last time Spurs won.
No, neither can they.
Didn't they lose 3-0 to Fulham? I can't remember.
They lost 2-0 to Chelsea, lost home to Arsenal, and lost 4-0 at Newcastle.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't think they'd won in the last 3.
Let me have a look.
Forest at home was the last time they won on April
they won
7th.
3-1.
April the 7th. I mean, Dan's normally, he's obviously ill because he's normally way on that. So it wouldn't surprise me if Spurs didn't win a game. Although Arsenal will be hoping
they should beat Sheffield United away though.
Well, you would hope. Yeah, you would hope.
You'd hope. They should do. We have a Geordie in the chat at the moment. He's popped in, obviously feeling quite happy, and that's great. Enjoy where you are.
They need it, don't they? Yeah.
Enjoy where you are.
They've got a bit of good form now, Newcastle, haven't they? They've had a couple of
all of a sudden. Yeah.
And yes, we do need Europe to have a proper transfer. We're going to get Europe, whatever happens. It's just which level. It's not going to be the Champions League. So, like I said, it's much for muchness. And yes, it'll be the second time this season. Dan, talk to me about this game that is coming up. The other bit of news is that Martial has been back in training. Do you see a way into the squad for him this weekend?
I would make changes. I personally think the league's pretty much done. We need a miracle to finish 5th. If we can beat Newcastle, then we should finish above Newcastle. But I genuinely think we're going to finish probably 7th or 8th. Just it is what it is. We need to put all our eggs in the same basket. I would start Jackson tomorrow at centre back. My worry is if we lost someone like Maguire now till the end of the season, then we're really, really short on players. I'd probably even bring Martial back in for a couple of games towards the end of the season as well, if he's fit enough, and give Højlund a bit of a rest coming up to the final. I've not got many good memories of Palace other than Matic scoring that absolute worldie on his left.
Who scored that worldie of a free kick against us last season? Was it last season?
Probably Eze.
Was that Leslie or Elise?
Or it might be Elise, yeah. It was one of them, but they're both really good at what they always seem to turn up against us anyway. One of them two. I'm enjoying the football they're playing, to be honest. They're playing some good football in terms of it's very clinical, the football they're playing. If our players could be 50% as clinical as theirs, we'd be winning games 4-5-2. So it's an interesting one for me, but I would definitely look at some changes. But from experience and from what we've seen from Ten Hag, he's not going to make any changes. He's going to literally play his strongest 11. And knowing Ten Hag and the way he's used players before, would not shock me to see Johnny Evans come straight back in. Genuinely wouldn't shock me to see Martinez on the bench, Martial straight back in. It really wouldn't, because it's just the way he seems to do things. If he's told by the fitness and the sports people that they fit, and he plays them, and they should be fit, they should be ready to go. So it wouldn't shock me at all if that was the case. Yeah, it was Elise. So yeah, I don't predict an easy game for us against Palace. Palace are a really difficult team to judge at the minute as well. They look like a team that can either chip 3 or play really well. But it's going to be an interesting game. It's actually a game I'm looking forward to Monday. It's not going to be an easy game for sure. But I do agree with Mark. I think some of this season as well is we've lost it a little bit in what Barry was saying in terms of defense, midfield, attack. We're sort of individuals still. We're not a team yet. So the defense is always going to struggle when it's like that. There's games that should have been put away with the chances that have been created that they haven't done that. And then there's times where you've got to allow them because the kids, in essence, the kids up front for the majority, you've got to be steady enough defensively that they can afford to miss one or two before scoring. And we're not quite there. But we do need to see a plan. I saw Postecoglou come out and sort of rip into Spurs recently while we're on the subject of Spurs. And someone tweeted, can you imagine if F did that like Twitter would be up in arms? I'd love him to come out and do something like that. Say that some of these players just won't train right. There'll be definite changes in the summer. They're not doing what I want them to do. So yeah, he's got a tough end to the season. I wouldn't say it's FA Cup to save his job, but if he plonks an FA Cup on the desk at the end of the season, it's a lot harder for them to get rid of him than maybe if he doesn't do that, especially if we finish 7th.
Interesting. Very interesting. A couple of things that I wanted to mention as well. The big thing that we put on the title of the show today was obviously Bruno to miss the game. Now, he scored 7 in his last 6. I mean, I don't even really like thinking about what could have happened in some of these games if Bruno Fernandes hadn't been there, which isn't bad considering he's the worst captain that Man United have ever had since Harry Maguire, effectively, as the world likes to paint him at the moment. So, Stu, if there's no Bruno, I know you said you would drop him anyway and you would give Mason Mount a chance, but do you... Let me rephrase the question. Have you seen enough from this Manchester United team to make you believe that we could go there and defeat a Crystal Palace who are still chasing a top half of the table finish without Bruno?
I do. There's a couple of things actually with regards to Bruno, and Mark's just said, "Don't let the Bruno slander slide, please." It's not about slander for me on Bruno. This is about forward thinking. If he is slightly injured, then can we afford to risk him before the FA Cup final? However, the last couple of games, Bruno's upped his game superbly well. He's been a terrific leader that I've noticed recently. Still got that petulant side to him, but I've noticed him playing a lot better. I don't, like I say, I haven't really listened to Ten Hag's presser, so I don't know where we are in terms of injuries. But if there was a question mark about Bruno, and I think if we went into the FA Cup without him, the final without him, it makes obviously a lot more difficult for us. So from that point of view, that's the only reason why I probably would rest him. Having said that, re-looking at everything and re-evaluating everything, I still think we can get 5th. I do. If we can go to Palace, get a result, it's going to be immensely difficult at Arsenal. We know that because the way that Arsenal are playing at the moment, it's going to be very, very difficult. You know, Arsenal will come to us still in the title hunt, and that's a big, big thing for Arsenal. You know, and they know they've got it. You know, they'll have a difficult game for us. So I'm really kind of on the fence a little bit, which is unusual for me because normally I'm very set in my ways, and yes, I think we should do this, and you know, and I've got my reasoning behind it. So in answer to your question, I've been really impressed with Bruno just recently. So the only reason I would rest him is for the FA Cup final. That's the only reason I would rest him. And I think at some point Mount has got to do something this season. He has to, for his own kind of his own self-belief, actually, as well as the players' belief, you know, and the team belief and the fans' belief, because we don't know what Mount's going to give us. The goal that he scored was superb. And then, as Mark said, you've got Ahmed that can come in as well. So I think we've got enough cover if Bruno's carrying that knock to say, look, mate, just have a rest. He won't rest. I think Dan's right. and you said it, Barry, we know from old that if Bruno knocked on his door and said, look, I'm playing, he's going to play. And so, it's a really difficult question, actually. I'm not often stumped for words, Baz, but I don't quite know what to do for the best here with him. So if he's carrying a knock, I think rest him. I do, and then try and mount or maybe Ahmed if he's injured. If he's not injured, then I think you've got to play him because going in against Arsenal on 57 points. We are getting there. We could actually, I believe, finish fifth because I think we'll do Newcastle as well. So it'd be one of those for me. I don't think I've really answered your question, Baz. Sorry about that, but I'll be interested to see what the lads think really because it's not an easy question to answer that for the first time with Bruno. It's a difficult one.
I'm used to it by now, mate. Very used to it. It's not a problem. You're a maverick. It's all good. Fabrizio Warmano is letting us know that Ten Hag has not
for the paddock.
Out of the game, so he's expecting him to be in the starting lineup. He's also going to be our optician because he's coming in he's doing the stats again. When he's not on the show, he's just coming in, finding these little Opta stats, obviously talking to his little mates, and they're getting them all in. So well done, you. But yeah, we've only lost one of our last 9 matches in all competitions. But John Commode, he's right. This is one of the stats that I've written down. We have only won 1 in our last 6 games in the Premier League. We've drawn 4, lost 1, and obviously 1-1-2. So without Bruno, do you think we're going to do that? Can you really see us in a tough Palace side who will have potentially, I'm going to say his name wrong again, but Guehi back again, Eze potentially back again as well, and a guy called, what's his name again, Mateta, who's scored in all 5 Premier League games at home under Oliver Glasner. So take those 3 players.
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to take Bruno out?
It's obviously a risk because he's one of our main players and he's probably really our only form player if you think about it. But he's obviously improved vastly the last month or so. But I just think that, as Dan mentioned, it will be a very difficult game regard. I personally agree with Bruno being a doubt. I do personally, I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing. It's one of those things with Bruno where we know if he's fit, he's going to play. As much as, we just know Bruno's the one person, if he's fit, he always starts. So I do personally, I think he probably will start on Monday. But if he doesn't play, do we have enough? Well, it means that we have to be put, it means people who perhaps haven't been doing it recently will have to raise their game and and produce. You look at players like, Hoyland has got one against Sheffield United. He needs to take more of his chances. Garnacho, as we know, he looks a bit like he's trying to find a goal at this moment. I don't think maybe it's being a young player and he's obviously started, 35 games in a row, something like that, and it's probably beginning to tell now. Rashford, I think, is a doubt at the moment. So, and then it's between Ahmad and Anthony, isn't it? So, truth be told, I honestly don't know if we have enough to beat them. I don't think anyone can say with confidence that we can. But at the same time, I know it's been circus football at times, but it's right to say we've not actually been beaten that often this calendar year as well. I think this whole calendar year, we've only lost 3 games, which is less than likes of Liverpool and Arsenal and that kind of thing. So as much as it's circus football at times, we're difficult to beat at the same time. So while we haven't been picking up wins, we've been drawing a lot. and early in the season we weren't drawing at all. All of a sudden we are starting to draw games, and maybe early on in the season, these games which we're drawing, we would have lost early in the season. So in a weird way, does it show a bit of character that games we were losing previously we're now drawing? So I don't know, but do we have enough? The one thing you fear about this team is they're not very good at coping with pressure. The crowd will be up. If they get the first goal, we might be in trouble, but Palace are one of them. They'll keep fighting to the end, and the game is one of those games. Even if you're winning, it's never over. They are capable. Obviously they beat us early in the season. They also just won at Anfield, and it's also worth noting they came from 2 down at City as well to get a 2-2 draw in December. So that's evidence of a team that keeps on fighting, keeps on battling, and it's a difficult game. It's difficult to call. We can win with or without Bruno, but you can't say with confidence, will Bruno be that decisive factor? It's hard to say.
You can see what's happening here. I've come up with a couple of statistics. Andrew Wall's thrown a few statistics in, and John Commode's gone, now we're not having that. And he's written down a few of his own as well. So come on, you three.
Memorised.
And he also says nobody can say with confidence who's going to win. But Mark has. Mark nailed his flag to the mast very, very early indeed, saying with confidence, I might add, that we are going to win by a couple of goals. He's gone 4-1. So there you go. Some people can apparently do that. But so sounds of things, we're not. So there we go. Here we go. So we're back in Bruno again. Nothing wrong with a player that has an air of arrogance. Cantona, the prime example. Bruno must lead by example. I mean, I think he is. Like, I just don't get the Bruno slander. I mean, I know that Mark put it in there, don't get the Bruno slander. I was joking, Mark. Sarcasm. That's me. I'm Mr. Sarcastic. If I was a Shaggy song, that's what I'd be called, Mr. Sarcastic. I haven't thought the rest of the words of that, though, but I'll have a think and see what I can do with it. But, like, genuinely, the guy, I've just said 7 goals in the last 6 games, dragging us across the line in most of those games. To say that he's not leading by example, I think is harsh, if I'm being brutally honest. And yes, I do see, because it's moaning, some people find it great, and I'm with NT, it doesn't bother me at all, really. If he's performing, brilliant. And I don't think there's any major dramas there at all. John, if we have no Bruno, will we win? Will it be a Bruno or a Bru yes?
It'll be interesting to see how we do fare without Bruno if he doesn't play. I think he's not missed a game for over 2 years now.
Doesn't feel like it, mate.
One game I think he missed a couple of years ago when he had a bit of an illness.
He missed the 0-0 at Anfield.
Oh, he was suspended for that, wasn't he? Yeah,
he was. And the fan base at that time said, "Oh, we play much better without Bruno." Blah 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 blah. They did.
So I think we will definitely miss him without a doubt. I mean, he doesn't like missing games at all. He doesn't even like being substituted at all. He likes to play every minute of every game. So he'd definitely be a big miss, especially with the form he's been in of late. But like we've discussed, we have just got to bear in mind we've got this cup final in at the end of the month, so we do need to be careful in that regard. But I'm sure he'll be doing everything he can to convince Ten Hag to play him.
No, I think I agree. And Dan, I mean, feel free to talk about Bruno if you want to. I've got a slightly different player for you though as well. Scott McTominay, still not confirmed to be playing. He needs to be assessed before they'll give him that opportunity. Reckon we'll see Super Scott at any point during the game, because I feel like Crystal Palace is the sort of game that he would do all right in.
I'd wrap McTominay up in cotton wool until the final so he can come on and score his winning goal. That's what I would do. Absolute match winner, Scott McTominay.
That's
So
Martial.
yeah. Well, you know what? That would be the perfect farewell tour for me. Martial winning FA Cup goal would be absolutely beautiful. Do you know what? Even if you could get like 2 before the end of the season, I'd be pretty happy because I've been watching some stuff, and do you know he's not been a bad player in the sense of when he plays, it's just his injury record. So if he could have just stayed fit for all these years, we'd be talking completely different about him as a player. Because as a player, he's a proper player. Like there's no qualms with how he played or anything like that. He was good on the ball, held the ball at Wales, scored goals, got assists, linked well. So I read a stat somewhere that only Luke Shaw's missed more games than him since he joined or something like that. It's really poor in terms of that. But now I would. Some of these players just need cotton wooling until that final. But I'm just of the opinion that the league's going to be a bit of a struggle. But what I would say is, if Bruno doesn't play on Monday, then he's not on the bench either. Because if he's fit enough for the bench, he's playing. Ten Hag's not going to. Yeah, there's no scenario I can see in the world of football that Fernandes is sat on that bench and Ten Hag's dropped him and he's fit enough to play. He's either going to start or he's not in the squad at all. I don't think there's going to be an in between. I think Ten Hag genuinely sees it as we can mathematically finish 5th. That is what he's going to try and do, and that means he'll play his very best players. John mentioned Garnacho. I think Garnacho's crying out to be rested. He's played far too many games for a kid. And you can see it in some of his I use the word desperation, but I don't mean it in that sense. But you can see it in his play. He's trying a little bit too hard to do stuff and be that impact that you shouldn't have to be at the age of 19. They should be senior players doing this for him. So I think he needs a rest. And this is where I look to players like Ahmad. Can Ahmad come in and do something for a few games? Could Martial drop back in and sort of give Højlund a bit of a rest for a few games? Have we got a few options coming back a bit more forward that maybe aren't as young to give some of these lads a rest? People are forgetting Kobe Minu must be on quite a few starts in a row now or appearances. And he's another one that's just a kid. I'm a huge fan of playing kids. I say it every week, play the kids, give them a chance. But there's a difference between bringing them into the team and over-relying on them. And at the minute, Man United are definitely over-relying on players well below the age that you should be doing it. So, yeah, for me, I would just wrap some of these up before the cup final, just so they're fit to play. Because our best chance of beating Man City is with the best players we've got available on the pitch. And we talk about Bruno slander. Bruno Fernandes is the most polished player that this football club's got, and it's not even close. It's by some distance. He's one of the most polished players in the Premier League. These would be arguments adjacent to Scholes, Lampard, Gerrard, with Fernandes, Odegaard, KDB and players like that. And he's right up there with them in terms of his chance creation, goals, assists, everything. He is a proper player, and I feel sorry for him that he's at Man United now, to be honest, because I can only imagine what he would have won if he would have been there a decade earlier or a bit sooner, surrounded by better players and maybe even better stature off the pitch, if that makes sense. I might imagine if he was there when David Gill was there and Ferguson was there, because he's been a hell of a player for us. Like, his stats are absolutely mind-blowing when you look at them. And not just his stats, because you can get lost in stats, but his actual performances on the pitch, 99% of the time, he plays a 7, which is so incredibly hard to do. I just want to see the return of Martial and Rashford for the rest of the season in terms of what we saw before. If they can link up and win as an FA Cup, I'll be absolutely buzzing with that. And obviously, it'd be nice to see Maguire lift an FA Cup as well. But just for me, the FA Cup's the big one for me. I don't really put any stock into. I don't know. I mean, some fans would be surprised, like when you say, "Oh, I don't really put stock in Europa League or Europa Conference League or whatever it's called these days." I'd much prefer to finish 7th, win an FA Cup, than finish 5th and win nothing. That's just where I'm at. Like, I'd love to see half of these players. Sounds harsh, but it would be a nice leaving present for some of them as well. We can't get caught up in the emotion that I'd love to see Martial lift it, but that doesn't mean to say I want to see Martial playing at the club next year. Same with possibly Maguire. Love to see him lift it. Is he long-term Man United? I'm not sure, but we get a heck of a sell-on price if he wins it. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's just about putting the club in the right place for the transfer window. And I don't think fifth does that more than an FA Cup, to be honest.
Fair point. Quiz time, gentlemen,
Oh, no.
because I found something very interesting today. And that was that Man United have had 4 red cards against Crystal Palace. I very much emphasise the sound because the 4 reds have also gone to footballers whose either first or second name has the phonetic sound at either the start of their first name or the start of their surname. Can you name the 4 players that have been sent off with the...
Casemiro is one of them.
Cantona, the infamous.
Cantona's the obvious other.
The drop kick.
The other 2 C's. Don't think Ronaldo would have done.
Roy Keane was
Keane.
Gareth
There's the
Southgate.
sound. Well done. That was the trick one.
Semi-final, yeah.
Roy Keane was the trick one.
But it was because all the others begin with C, Dan, and Keane is with a kicking.
Just because he got sent off 14 times in his career, I thought it might have been an obvious guess. That's all.
So you're still not well.
Begin with C.
The last one is the first name, not the surname.
Chris Smalling.
Chris Smalling, the FA Cup final, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The Lingard goal.
Apologies, I missed the question completely. Sorry.
Right, man, I can see you're on the phone. Don't worry about it. But what was very interesting for me now is that
you would have accepted Mike Smalling as well.
Mike.
Exactly.
Mike.
Doesn't work if it's Mike. We've got to be honest. But what I will say is that now means that poor old Kobe Mainu and Christian Eriksen, you have to keep an eye on them.
Casemiro again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he doesn't count because he's already had one. So, right.
Cavani was all right, though, wasn't he?
Not going to count him. He was using that. Absolutely. He was. No, because he didn't play for us. But lovely. Back.
I mean, that would have been nice. I rate Ashley Cole.
I liked him.
Yeah.
I really did. People have a big old go at Ashley Cole.
I think that was one of Andy Cole's first appearances, that Cantona sending off, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So, because he was the one having a go at the ref before the infamous. So.
You know what, the Palace game?
Yeah, because he sent him off, and Cole was having a right go at the ref, and then Cantona did what he did. So.
I can neither confirm or deny, but I may well have been in the crowd that day.
Which end?
Indeed.
Again, I can never confirm or deny. Actually, I managed to get a ticket into the home end. A couple of good friends of mine from down south got me into the game. The pitch was awful, terrible. If you recall the pitch. And we were wearing the probably one of my all-time favourite shirts, the black, the yellow, and the blue. It was one of my all-time favourite shirts, and it was a niggly game anyway, a very, very niggly game. Cantona was putting it down a hell of a lot, really. But unfortunately, I was at the opposite end of what happened, so I don't necessarily, and nobody really. On the day, nobody knew exactly what was going on. There was obviously that stamp and then the sending off, and Cole was going nuts, and I think Hughes was going nuts at the time, and Cantona walks off, and then all of a sudden, people are watching. Actually, Cole having to go at the ref more than what was transpiring. So not many people in the ground, unless you were physically within that quadrant, actually saw the initial punch.
Yeah, did you think much of it? Because obviously, say most people would have been like, what's gone on there? Did you think that, you clearly would have thought, well, something's gone on there, I'm not sure. But was it...
Well, the initial reaction was that somebody, there was 2 reactions. First of all, there was just a scrap within the standing area, but you wouldn't have expected a scrap there anyway. And secondly, was somebody injured, and people were rushing to get by it. Because when you look at what Cantona actually did, he went completely the wrong way. Because I would have dived into the bloke like that, and I would have knocked him straight out. I mean, not that I would have done that. I'd like to make that clear in the AFU do not condone any type of violence whatsoever on this channel. But that's what I would have done. So to see him, only when I got home on Match of the Day did I, because don't forget back then, John, there was no social media.
Yeah.
It would have been on Twitter, like TikTok, like that, wouldn't it? So
it was unbelievable. I was listening to it on the radio because that's how I consumed my football. And absolutely, I was exactly the same as you. Couldn't wait to see what had happened on Match of the Day.
Because I don't know, but I would imagine, like, people in the crowd, it wasn't apparent immediately as to what was going on, as to what happened. I mean, imagine the radio were a little bit confused for that split second.
Well, I think interesting because a guy who is that BBC commentator I don't like, and he was like, he's just punched a fan. Eric Cantona needs to be thrown out the club and everything. I think is it John Green? I think he's still commentates with the
Alan Green.
Alan Green, sorry.
Alan Green,
Alan Green.
Alan Green.
You know, he was the one who's saying it, and let's be honest, I don't think he's been most pro United commentator ever, but. Yeah.
But he, I mean, I remember it vividly, but I've experienced so much in football that kind of ranks quite low. Probably because I didn't see it, and probably I was a bit miffed I wasn't actually by it, because I might have clocked. Again, I don't condone any violence, but I might have helped Eric out. Just say, don't worry, Eric, I'll have him for you. But it doesn't. It doesn't rank high. I'll tell you what ranks higher than that for me is Kevin Moran getting sent off in the FA Cup final, the first player to be sent off in the FA Cup final. I think that's more of a, if you were to consider, or at the Whiteside goal in '85. I don't know. I don't know. It's strange.
Alan Shearer with his roundhouse kick to a kneeling player who, I can't be honest, he looked like he was trying to be a version of the guillotine.
Well, one of my favourite memories about it, I think Lee Sharp speaks about that in a video, and he's literally like, right, let's go, and he's going to have a go at Eric, and he starts slating in some Ballister, and he goes, so you can't do that, son.
Vicky was saying it's a shame that if they knew the content that Cantona was doing, or the context that Cantona was doing, he didn't get Stone Cold music. Is that the wrestler? Stone Cold, what's his name? Yeah, that would have been quite cool, actually, because the way that I mean, if you remember, if you can think of that, he went to, I mean, it was a difficult maneuver trying to kick him over the kind of, over the advertising hoardings immediately, and then to right himself to get the right hook. It went mightily impressive, Eric.
That guy, he thought he could get away with it, didn't he?
Well, he did. Yeah.
And then literally he's off.
Yeah, he did. I mean, next thing I know, he's and do you know, fair play to the guy. He's never really come out and milked it, has he? Not to my knowledge, anyway. I'm sure he's done interviews.
Well, there were stories that, when it went to court, that he had to give, obviously, his house address. So some United fans followed it, and then he ended up having to move to a different address, and then United fans found him.
It wouldn't surprise me. But
I can't imagine for 1 second he'd ever try and do anything. Because
I think he got done years later. Apparently, he had a son, and he assaulted a football coach or something years later. According to
I think you've got issues. You've got issues with that. I would imagine when he was giving it the big and then all of a sudden Cantona turned on him. Oh, the shock and the surprise when he took that boot.
Well, I watched Fever Pitch, which was like 4-part series on the first decade of the Premier League up until '99, and it looked at the whole period. And they said that it later turned to him that he ended up going into court, that saying like he actually created it because he was shouting all kinds of abuse at him, and it was to get him banned from stadiums for a couple of years, so much to the point where the barrister or whoever was arguing saying he should be banned. He literally jumped out the courtroom and, got the lawyer in a headlock, basically. So, that's basically what happened. So, yeah, if you watch it, Fever Pitch on BBC, I'll give you more in-depth analysis on it.
Again, we don't condone violence on this channel.
Of course.
Well, I mean, you say we don't condone violence, but we certainly don't condone racism either. So
we don't do anything. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely.
So,
on the Pussycat,
Neville, I'm going to throw it back over to you. And the question that I wanted to ask on this one is about Marcus Rashford, because it amazed me to realise that he's not going to play. He's sidelined. We're not expecting him to play. But if the next game he plays will be his 400th game for the club. Where are you standing on the whole Rashford chat at the moment? Because I saw Box come in and he was given a list of players that he'd get rid of. Marcus Rashford is one of those people. But for me personally, I don't think we should be getting rid of Marcus Rashford purely because we know what he can do when he is fit and capable. What do you reckon?
Yeah, just thinking about that appearance thing. It's a lot of appearances, isn't it, for somebody of his age? But you forget that it's over 8 years since he made his debut. Now, I don't know. It's a shame, really. He's after such a good season last year, he's not been able to follow it up this year. Whether he's got other things going off that's that's causing his football to not be as good as it could be. But I certainly hope he can pull something out of the bag. Cup final day. Hopefully he'll be fit for that, and he'll be able to prove the doubters wrong. Hopefully, because I do want him to do well. He's obviously done it in the past, and he's still capable of doing it, I think.
Oh, I mean, you're right. It's a shock that it has been that long, but he's had 9 seasons. This is his 9th season at the club. And in that time, only 3 seasons has he scored less than 10 goals. Obviously, the season before last, his first season, where he didn't get that many games, really, he was on a roughly 50% ratio anyway. And obviously this season, where he is 2 off at the moment. So very interesting. Simon saying Rashford's been spotted at Manchester Airport destination Saudi. I mean, maybe not. I've got to be honest with you though, Dan. If he did decide to go off to Saudi Arabia, unlike Jesse Lingard, I don't think I would blame Marcus Rashford with the level of turning that seems to have happened from some of the fan base, that the lack of support that he has had. Is he a victim of a side that has let the fans down? So therefore, because there has been such a disconnect, I think, between the fans and the players at times under certain managers, and then as a result, we obviously had the joy of the Solskjaer era where everybody seemed to be getting a bit together and everything was a bit more cuddly, and then it was less cuddly under Ranić because it was clear the problems that were there. People are just tired, and I get that. People are tired of what's going on at the club. They're tired of the mediocrity that they've seen. They're tired because some of these fans haven't experienced losing with Manchester United properly, and it's not what they signed up for when we were collecting every trophy under the sun. Is Marcus Rashford just a victim of a fan base that's angry at the team, or does he genuinely deserve to have the level of, I'll call it criticism for now, that he is receiving?
No, I think he's one of these players that have unfortunately, they were around the time in social media and where everybody seems to think that every footballer is a FIFA footballer. I think if you had matched Rashford's seasons up to somebody like Giggs or Beckham or whatever, I don't think they're that dissimilar. I think he's on something like 200 goals and assists in 413 games, which is about a goal or assist every other game, which back in the day was absolutely an amazing record. If David Beckham was getting a goal and assist every other game, he was purring at school and pretending to be him and stuff like that. He's just part of football now, where if you're not scoring a hat-trick every game and you're not getting 2 assists every game, you're absolutely battered. I had a disagreement with somebody, funnily enough, on TikTok of all places, because they were saying that Martin Odegaard's not in the top 10 midfielders in the Premier League this season, which I just they called someone deluded to say that he was. Now I think you could argue that Odegaard's within the top 10 midfielders this season. He's been absolutely fantastic, and currently Arsenal are top of the league. And I think it's just because he went through, like this is Odegaard, but Rashford's similar. He went through a period where he didn't get a goal assist in 10 games, so he can't be a good player. And it's just absolute nonsense. The way that Declan Rice has changed Arsenal is incredible, and I think he's one of the best in his role going. And Rashford sort of got the issue where the football we're playing at the minute doesn't suit Marcus Rashford. The football Solskjaer played suited Marcus Rashford, and the football we played last season suited Marcus Rashford. But this brand of football now at the minute isn't suiting Marcus Rashford. He's also struggled because he doesn't have Luke Shaw behind him, and playing with a left back like Luke Shaw suits Rashford better than playing with a right back at left back. So there's lots of cogs to the reason that Rashford's not doing fantastic. But I've said this before on previous streams. I understand that Garnacho's the future and etc. But Rashford's got more goals and assists this season than Garnacho, but you wouldn't think it the way people talk about it, and he's done it in less games. But it's because we expect more from Marcus Rashford because he's 27 now. So he has got to put bigger numbers than Garnacho up. But if you sort of take a step back from the situation and look at Rashford for what he is, which is a very good footballer, his stats are good. If you want to put him as a world-class world beater and you want to put him on that pedestal, that's where you start to fall back, because I don't think he's not that world-class, can go to Real Madrid and get 30, 40 goals a season player. He's a good footballer that'll have good seasons, and he's not consistent enough to be at the very top table of the footballing world, let's say. We see players get put at this top table far too often, and I think that's part of the problem with Rashford. Because he had such a season last season, people instantly put him at this top table, and he shouldn't be at that very top table. He's at the next table down from the top table, and it's about understanding that he's not the footballer that maybe because he's fast and he's quick on FIFA and you can score 5 with him on Ultimate Team. He should be getting 10 against Man City in the FA Cup final. It's just not how football works. It's like they don't understand that consistency of a footballer is the biggest thing. So you can be as good as you want and as bad as you want, but it's the consistency that you find that makes you a good footballer or not a good footballer. There's plenty of really, really good footballers, talent-wise, that have absolutely failed because they couldn't find the consistency. I always go back to Balotelli. Mario Balotelli had the ability and standard of football to be one of the very best that we've ever seen. And he was crap because he couldn't find the consistency in his performances and he couldn't sort his off-the-field issues. And this is where Rashford finds himself. Can he get himself back to a consistent place? I read somewhere that if he gets himself back to a consistent place and plays for Man United till he's 33, he could be up there with Wayne Rooney's record by just getting 10 to 12 goals a season, just hitting a consistent 10 to 12. But can he do that? I'm not convinced at the minute. I wouldn't want to sell him for. Some people are saying like 40 million. Sell Rashford 40 mil. Get rid. He's the problem. Man United need, if we're a serious club, 70 million no less for Rashford, because he could go to a PSG and do a good job, and he could go to a league that maybe suits his brand or style of football and do a better job. But I do think it's over the top, and I think Simon's right there. Simon's just said about him his wages. I think once he went onto this contract, that's where the expectation really jumped with the fans. Because if you're getting paid 375k a week, you have to put the performances up. You've got to be putting them 10 out of 10 performances, 7 out of 10 performances. But it's not just about goals and assists at that point. You've got to be driving your team as well. So it's a fair point.
We talk about your stats. I'm going to throw them at you now, because you just spoke about the ratio at which you score in the sort of the 1 in 3 ratio. There have been 528 goal scorers for Manchester United, of which Marcus Rashford is currently joint 15th with Tommy Taylor. Now, you're talking 528 people scoring goals for your club, and you are in the top 15. I feel like that deserves a bit more respect. But just in case it's not, granted, his ratio is not up there with the very best. It's not up there with Wayne Rooney. I get that. It's not. Rooney was nearly at 1 in every 2. But I'll tell you who he is up there with. He's better than Ryan Giggs, which you would expect. But Ryan Giggs was a left-sided player. And Marcus Rashford spends the vast majority of his time. Ryan Giggs managed to score. You have to excuse me. I've got reading glasses coming, would you believe? I'm getting a bit old. He got 168 goals in those nearly 1,000 appearances. And he only scored 0.174. So he wasn't so great in terms of ratio. He was also up there with Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes, bless him. I forgot you can make it bigger. That works. Oh, silly sod. 155 goals for Paul Scholes. That's much easier. Paul Scholes getting his 155. But still not so great because he was only on 0.216 goals per game. I'll tell you he's just behind is Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes was on 3.49. Now, sorry, 0.349. Now, Mark Hughes, 163. I don't think there's anyone on this place here who would say with Mark Hughes having left, what a crap striker Mark Hughes was.
Do you want something interesting about Mark Hughes? I've seen it. It was on this day 30 years ago. He scored his 150th goal for United 30 years ago today.
There you go. So, very interesting. Yes, Giggs was a winger in a 4-4-2. I get that it was different, but he's still on the left. He's not a striker. I'm trying to do something good here for someone. Stop being horrible. It's like, but the thing that I really found interesting is, do you know which player who's in the top 10 goal scorers that Marcus Rashford's goals per game ratio is exactly the same as?
Top 10.
I'll make it easier for you. Top 5.
Ronaldo.
I'll make it easier for you.
Top
Top 2.
Bobby Charlton.
He's got the exact same goals per game ratio at this moment in time as Bobby Charlton.
Although it should be said, Bobby Charlton started as a forward and then went into midfield. So there we go.
There's always a caveat for someone, isn't there? The point I'm making is these are players who we would all sit there and go, absolute legend of the club. At this moment in time, we are sending somebody to Coventry effectively.
Yeah, but this is the point. The point you're making here, Barry, is this is the problem with modern day football. So Bruno Fernandes suffered from this for this season. He had a period in the season where, because his stats weren't matching up in goals and assists to the rest of the league, that he were crap. We should sell him. He was rubbish. Get rid. And ultimately, he was having massive influence in the games. The Marcus Rashford's issue this season is his stats aren't that bad on paper, but his influence is really dwindled this season to what it was last season. Too many people are just too quick to close the book and say, "Oh crap, get him shifted." The same. I saw a stat somewhere the other day where Jadon Sancho was like 4th for chances created for Man United since Ten Hag came to the club, which is madness because I don't understand how he's created 56 chances, like from what I watched, but obviously I've missed something. But people are too quick to close the players on these books, and it makes me laugh because they would say, "Oh, go and get Rafael Leao and people like that because they're good on FIFA." And when you match them up for performance stats, etc., Rashford's as good. He's just not as good as Vinicius Junior and Mbappe for goals and assists. And that's the table because of this massive contract. That's the table that people are putting him at, and he's just not at that table. It's the club's fault because he was never at that table, because he was Manchester born and bred, and he was a good player for Man United. They've hit into the top table for pay, performance, etc. And he should never have been there. He should have been that table just a little bit lower. 200k a week, very good footballer, but he's not quite that level, if that makes sense. We need to have a little bit of a reshuffle. The same's going to happen with Kobe Mino if we're not careful. He's going to be on top wages and he's the very best of the best. We just need to cool our jets a little bit and see how he progresses. So put him on that sort of contract to see whether he progresses. You've got to take your time. It's what the club hasn't done. It's why we've got Casemiro. It's why we've got Varane on massive wages. It's like Maguire's on 200 grand a week, I think it is. We just need to pull back a little bit in what we're doing and realize that the problem we're having is because these players at Man United aren't consistent as the players at other teams, at Liverpool, at Arsenal, at Man City. We just need to slow our roll a little bit on getting rid and retaining. We just need to have a little bit of a plan, which we don't seem to have.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I'll finish that off with Franz just saying Scholes' commitment is 5 times that of Rashi. Stats are deceiving. And this is my problem. Everybody just wants to sit there and go by what they appear to be a commitment. And I'm going to be honest, unless you are sat inside Marcus Rashford's head, we've got absolutely no idea what commitment he is actually giving to the club and what isn't.
Can you imagine Rashford coming on the pitch in the FA Cup final, absolutely smashing into Rodri, which we would praise any other playing for, getting sent off, and they'd call him stupid? He's in a situation where he can't win.
I do have a slightly different take.
Oh, here he goes.
As you would probably guess. But everything in life has a sell-by date, unfortunately, or use by date. And Rashford's kind of in that bubble right now, where he's almost betwixt and between what's best for him as an individual, not what's best for Manchester United. It's actually what's best for him as a player, as an individual. My kind of opinion with Rashford is, I think he would be better served for his own well-being to move away from the club. I'm not suggesting we should sell him. I'm saying he might be better served from his own personal perspective, his own personal point of view, to maybe say, well, look, I've given 9 years to this club. I do want to stay. But he's not been able to, for whatever reason, kick on, as Dan says. And you need to kick on when you're playing an elite club, the best club in the world, and elite football. And it's the same with Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire, I think, for his own... Cheers, Jarvis. I think Harry, for his own mental well-being, needs to move on and go and captain West Ham because he'd be brilliant for West Ham. Now, I'm not saying that Rashford needs to go to PSG. I'm not saying that Rashford needs to go to Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying that Rashford needs to do this. I'm not saying that Rashford needs to do that. The further caveat is this. And whether people like it or not, football is now a business first and foremost, football second. And it is a business. If you are looking at restructuring the whole football side of the business, the whole football side of Manchester United, then you have to make decisions that aren't necessarily popular, but are correct in terms of where can I get the best value to bring in what I need to do to regenerate this squad, and how long am I going to be able to do it for? And that's the key for me. So I'm with Dan on this, but just a different take. I think Dan's absolutely right. I think he's called it correct in terms of his level and his ability side of it. But I also believe that Rashford himself has got to make that personal decision, and the club has got to help within that personal decision to see whether he's better off as a person, as a human, as an individual staying, or maybe going somewhere else to refresh himself. That's my only small caveat, Baz.
No, it's a fair enough point. Fair enough point indeed. And NT, of course, I'm not comparing Rashford to Scholes. I'm not comparing Rashford to Giggs. I'm not really even comparing Rashford to Bobby Charlton. If there's anybody sitting here who's thinking, oh, we're going to clip that up and see if we can get the fat bald bloke in some trouble on Twitter, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is his statistics are not as bad as people want them to be, and that we need to take a look at this season for what it is, which is just a blip. He deserves another season, just like everybody else that we're talking about. Ten Hag maybe deserving another season. You know, I think that's what we need. We need to just give him that opportunity because we know he can do it, because he's done it more often than not. And I think that's all I'm trying to get at. And I know you're not having a go at me, but you're the one that's written it. And because you've written something, you're going to try and respond to it so that people get it. I had one last question, really, before I asked us what our scores were. And it comes all the way back to the beginning. It was a very interesting point that was made that I didn't feel we could get to it till about now. Right at the beginning, Mark said it's taken longer than anticipated. It's not a write-off season. It's a season where we implement a system, regardless of results. Main problem is the key injuries. Now, my question's a short one. I'd like you to try and do it within a minute or so if you can. But we all know Ten Hag had a bit of a chat with Gary Neville, and within that, he's been talking about the system that he thinks he's trying to introduce. We've also heard that he said there is a system and that he's trying to sort that out with Jason Wilcox at the same time, so that system is something that is under the umbrella of what the club wants to see. My question to you four is a very simple question. Are you seeing the system here at Manchester United? Because genuinely, all I think I've heard us speak about for the last few months is there doesn't seem to be a style of play. So are you seeing
this first?
Or not? You absolutely can.
And I will be very, very quickly. And John's going to laugh here because he's heard it all before. Systems in football are systems in football that people learn about when they do their coaching badges. They do this, they do that, they do everything. But I can guarantee you 100%, Baz, and anyone else who's played football, plays football, is looking to play football, systems go out the window within 30 seconds, a minute of kickoff, because the game evolves constantly. So people say, oh, we're better off doing a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 or a 4-2-2-2 or this or that or whatever. They're great on a tactics board. They're brilliant. You know, Dan could pull up a tactics board now, put it in the front and say, right, we should do this. This is absolutely brilliant. It'd be right. But when you're physically out there and you're watching the game unfold in front of you, it becomes almost impossible to stick to that system. And I hate the phrase style of play. And I'm going to tell you very, very, very quickly why I hate the phrase style of play. To get from A to B, playing football, you've got to do things. You've got to pass to a footballer and you've got to pass to another footballer, and then you've got to potentially shoot and score. That's it. So somebody please tell me in great detail what a style of play is when ultimately all you're doing is passing to your teammates. That's all you do in football. So you can't have a style of play. What people like to think about is, well, we play this great attacking style of play, we play this great defensive style of play. But all you're ultimately doing is, John might turn around and say, well, I love playing out from the back. Well, okay, well, what are you doing when you play out from the back? You're passing to a colleague, and that's what you're doing. So I know I'm being a bit pathetic and a bit stupid, a bit childish, but it's a very, very
what I would go with there, not pathetic.
Okay. It's a very fine line of what people will class as a style of play and what isn't. Pep Guardiola, very quickly, I'm about to shut up now, Baz. Well, fucking false nine. You know, Barcelona, Guardiola invented it. Horse shit. Go and watch Alan Ball. Go and watch Bobby Robs, Sir Bobby Charlton. John will tell you, Sir Bobby played in a false nine. He told you immediately. He started off as a forward, then drifted back to a stroke 10, stroke 9, stroke 10, then to midfield play. Alex Stepney used to roll the ball and work the ball out from the back. Schmeichel used to launch it. I'm sorry. It just grinds my. John knows what my thoughts on it. Actually, so do you, Dan, don't you? Because me and you have had this conversation before. I'm not being pedantic by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't feel that when people can say I can identify a style of play, bollocks. Because it's either going to be attacking or defending. I mean, that's all it is. So I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
I'm intrigued to hear what the other three things. We'll go around to John. John, do you agree? Disagree? What's your thoughts?
Well, I was listening to the radio and there was a call in it. It was like, what's the most overrated things that are said, by politicians? And there was a whole list of quotes and everything. I apply this to football. Style of play is the most overrated phrase. in the world of football, you play to win. You play to score goals, and there are different ways of doing it. As for our style of play, well, I would say we're very open. And I was watching the Burnley game. Yes, we conceded a lot of chances. We also created a lot of chances as well, and we are creating chances. And this myth that we're not scoring goals, we are actually scoring quite a few goals. Weirdly, it's just that we're conceding a lot.
But John, bless you, love you to bits. You know that you're circumventing the question. What's the style of play?
The style of play is, but like Ten Hag has said in his interview with Gary Neville, is that injuries have impacted style of play. He spoke about Mason Mount being integral to the midfield, but that's why he signed him. But the problem is he's been injured. We all know about Martinez.
Can I just throw in there, though?
Yeah.
If he's saying that there's a style of play and the players have to play, and he's brought players in to play that style of play, is this not half of the problem? The fact that, what have they been doing on the training pitch then? Does he walk out there and go, there's no Mason Mount today, lads, so just fucking do what you like? I can't believe it. I've just sworn, and I've never done that on AFU. I deliberately try not to. Anyway, what I just said. What's going on the training ground? I'm going to go and just.
Well, I mean, I'm no more than you, Barry, when it comes to what's going on the training ground. I don't have a clue what's going on. I don't think anybody does. I think the thing is, though, and this goes down to when we're thinking about going forwards, is that with Wilcox in, Barada's going to come in, hopefully Ashworth comes in. To me, it looks like they're looking to build towards a possession-based style of play, which we haven't seen on the Ten Hag this season. So it's gung-ho, we give up the ball, we get the ball, it's end-to-end constantly. So it's not possession-based. And this goes down to what the club needs to look at going forward. So it's a question of whether they think Ten Hag is right for that style, and they'll obviously make that assessment over the next couple of weeks. But the same is with the players. What players are suited to this style? We've the quotes, and we spoke about Rashford a moment ago. Is he the type of player who will suit this new style which they're aiming towards? You can argue maybe not, because as much as Rashford has been a very good player, he might fit into it, but maybe he's not the best in a possession basing potentially. So as for this style of play, I'm not a tactical expert. I just say what I see. I just think that the way we would have been better, this is no exaggeration, if Ten Hag had some of his main players. The problem is we don't have a squad like Man City where everybody's used to playing the same system and so on. And to some extent, Liverpool as well. You can bring a player in and they know what to. We have players from different managers, different styles, and they're still here, a lot of them. And this is the problem when you're trying to build a style of play in inverted commas. But I do think personally that you need to decide who's the right manager to take you forward. And this is the story about some players might be up for sale and whatever. This is what Ineos have to decide for themselves in conversation with players and manager. Are some of these players up to it potentially? And while we are creating chances, we can see it's not great to watch at this moment, but you got to look at what kind of players will suit your system going forwards. I think it'll come in time, but you got to be patient, and I don't know who the manager will be.
No, we'll find out. NT telling me to put £1 in the jar. That I've got an AFU swear jar bottle. It's all going in there. So every time somebody swears, I put something in. It's not an excuse to keep swearing, boys. Mr. Neville. What we were just saying there about what they're doing for their training time, because this is what I think is frustrating for a lot of fans when people were saying that we couldn't see what Ten Hag was trying to do. Is this the fact then? Is he basically just saying, well, if my player isn't there that I'm choosing to do that role, then we're just going to let you do what you want, not a problem. We'll just play a different way. We'll just do Stu's way, just kick the ball. And is that half the problem? Is he just not coaching the rest of the players? Are we just saying that's the only player, the rest of you I don't care about? Is this where the disconnect's coming?
I think with regards to that, the injuries probably we've had perhaps don't help him. What he's trying to implement, the fact that the starting 11's changed so much throughout the season, but it does seem to be, to me, most teams in the Premier League, to me, seem to all play decent football in very similar sort of style. There doesn't seem to be a lot of, you don't get sort of like like Wimbledon back in the old days where it was just let's hoof it up to the striker and cause a bit of chaos and see what happens sort of thing. Everybody now sort of plays, it's all decent football, it's all on the ground. It has been for a few years, and everybody's sort of trying to play really nice flowing passing football, I think. But in terms of United, it doesn't seem to be, we don't seem to ever score really sort of fluid, great passing, moving goals where there's, loads of passes involved in great movement and things like that. It does seem to be a lot more, how would you say, methodical, slower maybe, which doesn't always seem to work out for us. Certainly like a lot of the games where we've dropped points at home against like the lower placed teams, it has been a bit of a struggle and a hard watch.
I mean, Dan, we'll finish that part of it with you before we go round for our predictions, but I don't know if I'm making myself clear enough. If Mason Mount is meant to be doing a role, you show somebody else how to do that role if he's going to be unavailable long term, so that style is still being introduced. Do you think he's been doing that?
So you could argue that it's been introduced at under 18s level. The type of football Ten Hag would normally play is there. They've done really well with it this season. The issue for me is it's not a style of play is not a thing for me. It's in essence patterns of play that you play within a game. So there was times when it was Solskjaer in charge, and there was a particular 3-man that would be Pogba, Rashford, and Luke Shaw, and they would all play like a little triangle in the top left corner, and they would try a flick over the top. And they would try that every few games because it was just like a pattern of play that they had. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Just seems to me that there's not many patterns of play between the players at the minute, which is half the problem. So the midfielders don't know where they're going to each other run, and you've got a left back that's not a left back, which don't help your left midfielder. You've got Garnacho, who seems to want to shoot. Anthony wants to shoot, but they don't want to put a cross in. But then you've got a centre forward that wants the ball into the box. So it's like a mismatch of loads of different styles. And this is what happens when you've got players from different managers and injuries occur, etc. You end up with, and I've said it since pre-season last year, you end up with a squad where it looked like the second team could play the football better than the first team. And this is why I was saying earlier that none of this first team is safe. In whether we win an FA Cup, whether we finish 5th in the Premier League, none of it should be safe. These obviously players that you would 100% want to keep: Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo, Martinez. You'd keep Onana at this point. You won't really. There's no point in changing him. But everybody's future is going to be an issue going forward because you just can't see patterns of play within the game. You'll see it the odd time, which is why we score. But then you don't see it in a defensive unit, you don't see it in a midfield unit, and you don't see it as a whole, like 11 unit. So you've just got to hope that you can do something in the summer to bring in maybe a few more players that are able to play this system. But unfortunately, the best example that you can give is Liverpool and time. We saw it this season where the left back got injured, so they brought in Bradley. Do you know what I mean? The midfielder got in, so they brought in such and such. And yeah, they fell off a little bit, but all these players came in and knew what role they were doing, the patterns of play they was going to play within the game. And there was just a clear plan from bottom level to top level, not just from first team to subs, but all the way across the squad. I would be, if I was a Man United player sat in that changing room with what's happening above me, I wouldn't guarantee that my future's safe. I would genuinely be worried that everybody bar you players you can maybe count on one hand are probably up for sale or could find themselves as part of a deal or a loan deal or just going out the club. I would back Ten Hag at this point, to be honest. I think he deserves it because a manager deserves. I mean, I'm gonna point this out because it's getting on my nerves now. I'm not sure what your problem is with me in terms of like in general. Well, I've literally just gave loads of examples. You've been sniping at me pretty much all stream. You said something about I've changed my opinion and I'm a sheep. I'm sharing exactly the same opinion I've shared for the last 12 months. So I'm not sure like what more evidence you want other than it's very clear to see that there isn't patterns of play in Man United's football, which is why it's so inconsistent, which is why we can beat a team and then suddenly lose to them, why we sometimes look good and then we look bad. I don't know what more examples you would like, but there's plenty of examples I've given you. Like, name me one consistent player in form for Manchester United. There isn't any apart from Bruno Fernandes because the tactics don't allow it.
Harry Maguire.
Harry Maguire is in great form for Manchester United, but
Can't believe you forgot him, Dan.
he hasn't always been, is what I'm saying. So he struggled last season under this management with the style of play, with what was expected, etc. There's just some issues going forward that the club need to rectify. You've just got to decide, is Ten Hag the man to rectify that? And I've said for weeks, this is where you have to either back him or you're not backing him. If he wants to sell Bruno Fernandes in the summer, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, you've got to back the man. You've got to say, if you're bringing in change, make all the changes you need to make, and I'll back you. You can't just half back him until it comes to selling a Fernandes and then say, oh, do you know what? I'm not sure. If you're all in or you're not. But I think the club's got a bright future with him if he gets the backing he needs. But we're going back to Solskjaer days now, aren't we? Where this manager's going to ask for a player in the summer. Is he going to get that player in the summer? Solskjaer never got the players he wanted. Mourinho never got the players he wanted. We need to have a proper plan for Ten Hag for him to be successful. Otherwise, we're going to have the same conversation in 12 months' time. That it's not been good enough. It's inconsistent. The players don't understand what they're doing. There's no patterns of play. You're in between a rock and a hard place with the squad at the minute. I feel sorry for some of them, like Garnacho and Mainu, because they're being relied on heavily when they shouldn't be at their age. And then you've got underperforming world-class players that can't kick a ball because they're injured or they're not at the top level in Casemiro. Do you know what I mean? It's a massive imbalance in the squad at the minute.
Indeed. All right. I am just going to say, Vicky, I've never heard him slate Harry Maguire.
100% have never slated Harry Maguire, so I'm not
There's
sure.
one person he has never said anything to. Yeah. It is
same with Stu as well. So.
I've also never slated Bruno Fernandes, and I've never slated Rashford. I literally did a full show on Marcus Rashford where
but he actually does talk about the youth. I'll give you that. He has said a lot about letting the youth play. And that's kind of where I was going with this. I mean, NC saying maybe he thinks other players can't do what he does. Seems to be quite adamant on certain players and positions, so maybe that's why. But as Box says, the team that shall not be named brought through Kelleher, Cancer, Bradley, can't say that one, Bacecic.
Yeah.
And Elliott into prominent roles. And that's the thing. If you give the youth the chance and show them what you want them to do, they'll sink or swim. It can't be much worse than sticking someone who you know can't do it in that position and who's not training to be in that position. And absolutely, the moment Dan slates Maguire is the moment we all just have to see
fair enough, yeah.
With the world. Right, listen, it's nearly time to finish. We need to find our final scores. Your little stat pack just to help you out. We have scored just one time at Selhurst Park. I'm losing my teeth. One goal in the last 3 visits to Selhurst Park for us. We've conceded 77 goals in 47 games in League and Cup, our worst since 77-78. And if we lose this one, it'll be the first time in the Premier League season we have lost 5 games in London. But Crystal Palace only 1 goal away from their Premier League record of 29, which they scored in 17-18. So they are looking for their best one. They have only won 1 out of 12 on a Monday. Won 7, lost 4.
Where do you possibly get that stat from?
BBC. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend I spent hours looking for it. I went to BBC preview.
So what? So they're chasing their highest scoring season, the Premier League.
Yeah.
And what's their highest? So
I'm going to reach it out for you, John, because I agree 29 seems low.
29.
One moment, sir.
They're on
They've been in the
45.
league for 10 years now, haven't they? So
It was, 49.
Oh, 49, right. I would say that's a bit low for
Sounds more like it.
yeah.
I told you I was losing the eyesight, didn't I? It's the reading glasses. 2s look like 4s now. Don't get old, John. It's not worth it, mate.
Oh.
Off we go. Stu, John, Dan.
Oh, 2-0. I said right at the beginning of the show we'll win.
I love the
And,
confidence.
yeah, we'll beat them 2-0.
2-0 for Stu.
Chaos for me, 3-2 United.
3-2 United we've had. Okay. Mr. Neville?
I'll go 2-1 United.
Dan.
I'll tell you what, John's trying to put me back on my deathbed with a 3-2. I can't cope with that.
It's the team, Dan. It's not.
Yeah, it's Captain Chaos, isn't it? I think it's going to be chaos as well. I think it's going to be 2-2.
Interesting. I think it is going to be a tough game, but I think I'll go with 3-1. Just not going to tell you which way. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Obviously to United. Obviously. United. Right. Listen, it's been brilliant, but we've been going for over 90 minutes, and I can see already that Stu's had his hot chocolate. It's nearly time for bed. I'm struggling to read again, so it's probably time for me to go and rest my eyes. John Commode's got to go and enjoy the rest of the sun in Florida.
He has.
Neville, he's off to go and have a bit of an all-nighter party. We know that's occurring. And, of course, Dan needs to go and sleep as well. So, listen, it's been a pleasure. What's happening next? What day is it today? Saturday, so obviously tomorrow. Good luck to the girls. They are up against nasty Liverpool as they fight for 4th position in the WSL. So do give your support to them if you can, and then come and join us all the way over on Monday night. It's going to be tricky because it'll be just before the United Palace game. We'll be there. WFC, come and join us, and we will dissect everything that happened in the Liverpool game. And then, obviously, Tuesday evening, we will be back so that we can have a little chinwag all about you've just spent the last 90 minutes talking about. So I thank you all. Cheers, Stu. Thank you, John. Cheers, Johnny Neville. Well done, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Well done, everybody in the chat. If you haven't already, please make sure you like the video, and we will see you Tuesday.